Hey, Diana, did you know that the right report can make you money?
Mark, that's the dumbest thing you've ever said.
Ladies and gentlemen, jurists and just curious, welcome to the Successful Barrister podcast. Here you'll learn about marketing, management, and life skills for lawyers that probably won't get you disbarred. Hosted by Marc Whitehead, a seasoned lawyer who remembers when fax machines were cutting edge, and Diana Berry, attorney, COO, and the brains behind the scenes. Together, they are the legal world's most dynamic duo since statutes met regulations. So if you're looking to build a practice, not a prison, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Successful Barrister, where legal legends are made.
And welcome to the Successful Barrister podcast, a podcast for lawyers and law firm leaders about marketing, management, and life skills that probably won't get you disbarred. I am your host, Marc Whitehead, alongside my sassy number one, my right hand, Diana Berry. Hey, Diana, what's going on?
Not much. I can't tell if I'm extra giddy because you're buying us food, which, as we established on the last podcast, is like my love language. And so we've got a food truck coming for lunch, or because you are clearly disgruntled that my outlines are better than yours.
I am not disgruntled. I would be happy if you wrote the outline for every podcast because that would save me a tremendous amount of time.
Do you want to tell everyone why you're sassy today?
I don't even know. I don't think I am being
grumpy,
sassy or grumpy or any of that.
Oh, okay.
I'm in a great mood today. I'm just
well. Then, do you want
I'm
to
just
share
ready
why?
to slay some of your sacred cows over there because I've been reading your outlines. So,
well, I'm really excited because today we are talking about 5 operations reports that we at the firm can't live without. So this question actually came because I got to participate in a roundtable when you sent me to LitiQuest a couple of weeks ago. Which was really fun. It was really informal, so a lot less pressure, but still, you got to have a discussion with some, like, I think of industry greats.
so
really
tell our
cool
tell our listeners, what is LitiQuest exactly?
It is a conference for Litify customers or Litify potential customers, where they get to talk about what they're doing as well as what some clients are doing. They talked a lot about, change management this time and the client experience. It was just really, it's always one of my favorites. You get to see, it's like Litify Geek Prom.
You get to hang out with your geek friends because it's all a big data geek out.
I don't know if any Litify or LitiQuest people that I saw there will listen to this podcast, but it's like I was walking around, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like Litify Geek Prom. Yeah. We're all like, oh my gosh, hi. Like there's a lot of screaming.
I know. And I've been to one LitiQuest and I felt I never needed to go back.
And I'm like, every year, I'm like, Mark, I'm going. And so participating in a roundtable was kind of a new epic.
So you were on stage?
No, it was a roundtable. So like literally like around the room.
okay.
And so that's why less pressure.
You didn't have to dress up, makeup.
I did.
Okay.
Of course, sir. I mean, I still represented the firm.
Okay.
But so I did do, I dressed professionally. But one of the coolest questions that we got to answer and got to talk about with everyone else in the room was what reports can't you live without? And that was the genesis for today's podcast. And then our marketing director was like, well, you need to talk about marketing attribution. I'm like, no, ma'am, I do not. So let's do an upcoming podcast on 5 intake and marketing reports that we can't live without.
Because I noticed that you told me I could not do a section of the podcast over marketing and intake because those are my babies.
Those are your babies. And I felt like those were important enough to really get their own because I had actually thrown an intake one in here as well. And then, so we are going to do 5 ops reports today that Marc Whitehead Associates cannot live without. And so one of the things that I wanted to emphasize before we go into the 5 reports is that I think less is more.
Absolutely. Data overload, just paralysis by analysis, too much irrelevant data.
Well, and I bet we just finished a dashboard. I bet there were tiles on that dashboard, 1, that we didn't address, and 2, we didn't know what it meant, why that number was even there. So at your firm, Mark, you do monthly dashboards with each of your departments.
Right. So I conflate the term dashboard and report frequently.
I know, which drives me crazy.
Okay. Well, to me, they are reports. They're just a different type of report. They're a periodic report as opposed to an
Yep.
in real time report.
Well, and dashboards are an amalgamation, a bunch of reports. And so when you're like, go give me that report or that dashboard, and you mean report, you and I end up squabbling because I don't understand what you want from me. And you think you're being very clear. So
Well, I am, but you just don't know it.
this is why we squabble. So, but there were probably tiles on that dashboard that we didn't go over today, and that you may not have even known why it was on that dashboard.
Okay, a tile meaning a
Number,
a
bar graph,
a data
chart,
point.
a data point. Exactly.
Yes. Okay. Fine. So you
Agree
use a
or
lot
disagree?
of geeky words that I'm not sure everybody follows, though.
That's fair, but I'm your geeky word. I'm your person that's
Right.
handling all this, so that's okay.
So you are a geek in chief.
But you haven't agreed with me. You don't agree that there were probably information there?
I do. No. I think
was
you've misinterpreted what I said. So no, I do agree
Mm-hmm.
with everything that you have said. I just like to slide in the geek comments every now and again.
We're going to tally. I'm going to do tally marks, how many times you use the word geek moving forward, and
Right.
we're going to count that at the end. But guys, I say in an era where you can slice and dice data any which way now, not only with AI, but with all the vendors that are out there that, just the other, you really can't get on the PILMA listserv without Domo and Periscope and all the file skills and all the different things coming up at least once a month or
Where
every
all
other
of your
month.
geeky friends hang out at the PILMA
That's
listserv.
one.
That's like 12.
So they'll produce all this data for you, but do you know what it means? And are you doing anything actionable with that data?
So I'm going to go back to, we did a podcast way long time ago on the book 4 Disciplines of Execution. And one of the concepts in 4 Disciplines of Execution was, what are your leading measures and what are your lagging measures? In other words, lagging measures are results that you can't do anything about. And leading measures are basically the canary in the coal mine, which are giving you clues to, you need to, take some action based on this particular data point in order to to change what will happen in the future. I'm not sure. I think I said that fairly clearly, but the point is when I start looking at the data, I start looking for things that are leading measures, things that are actionable, things that lead me to ask questions, things that lead me to take action so I can, course correct if necessary. As opposed to certain data points they're just historical. Like, all right, last month we made X number of dollars. Nothing I can do about that now. That's water under the bridge. But what are the data points that actually lead me to actionable items so I can that move the needle in the future?
Exactly. And so one of the things that I have been harping our team about over 2 to 3 quarters, I think. So just so you guys know, this isn't something that we just handle one time, is making sure that our KPIs match our EOS scorecard, match our bonus scorecard, which means almost stripping down a lot of historical things that they've been doing. But, another thing that we talk about ad nauseum on this podcast is the fact that KPIs are like, we say KPIs, and people and our team glaze over the minute that they hear KPIs.
Key performance indicators.
Exactly. They're like, what does that mean again? I really just need to go back. Exactly.
Oh, Jesus, it's time to take a nap.
Exactly. But if you tie it to their bonus scorecard, tie it to their EOS scorecard, so they're looking at it every week on your weekly meeting, it starts to make sense for them. And so by doing so, we actually had to take out a lot of the superfluous data that really we were not looking at, the data that didn't make sense. And so I will say, I'm going to get off my soapbox. Less is more. Try to get rid of some reports if you don't know what they mean or if you don't review them. Also, one of my
I think it's really about getting the right data to the right people.
Exactly.
So everybody should have 3 to 5 key data points, but it's figuring out the key data points, and then maybe the things that don't matter to them might matter to somebody else, but it's about getting the information to the right people. So what I care about, the 5 things I care about, are going to be different from the 5 things that, let's say, a case manager is going to care about.
So another one of my favorite tricks that I wanted to mention, but I couldn't fit it into the outline, so I'm going to do it here.
Just going to do it?
I'm just going to do it, is email subscriptions of reports.
I saw that note. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, Mark, I was really hoping that you would actually know. I say, I love it when these reports go to my inbox.
I already know what you're talking about. So explain, and then maybe I'll pontificate.
One of my new tricks that I've done is Litify, and I'm sure every case management software has this, has this option to subscribe to certain reports and or dashboards, and then have those emailed to a specific user or users on a specific cadence. For example, every Monday morning at 8 a.m. now, you get your litigation management dashboard.
I saw that. I'm like, what the hell is this?
Oh. You have taken the wind out of my sails, popped the air in my balloon, and all of the other things more.
Okay. Well,
but you know what? Mark gets it.
No, it's the greatest thing ever. I'm just going to say.
No, you're not. But now I'm really bummed. But here's what I have seen. Your senior lit paralegal, Melanie, who's been with you for 30, going on now 31 years. She takes that data and she will then CC all the attorneys. And is that like geek? Is it? I'm gonna mark that one.
Star Trek. It's Lieutenant Data. It's not Lieutenant Data. It's Data. Star Trek said so.
But did the word exist before Star Trek?
Yes, it did.
Okay. So, but what happens is that when you get the data sent to people again who can take action on the information on a consistent basis and make it visible, then it is more likely that people will take action on the data. So take advantage of any email subscription notifications, those types of things that exist in your case management software. I know Litify cannot be the only one that does it. My final thing before we move into the actual meat and potatoes of this podcast is that I would call this one another 201 class.
Okay, another sophomore level class.
Another sophomore level class.
Not a freshman level class.
I would say that if you don't have, your basic reports, like the number of matters that you have open, the total monthly fees, or number of wins, I would even say time on desk.
We will see you in bankruptcy court later.
Mark, that's not nice.
You got to be able to run a business.
We're very nice to our listeners.
No,
I'm there. And then make put at the end of your maybe your Q4 goals to do some of these reports that Mark and I will talk about today. We're going to try very hard not to keep it disability focused, but we will use disability as an example so that you can hopefully apply these reports to your practice as well. We'll be back.
This podcast is sponsored by Marc Whitehead Associates, a national disability benefits law firm. Marc Whitehead runs a firm of over 60 dedicated people whose mission is to make a difference in the lives of our injured and disabled clients. Marc represents disabled claimants in Social Security disability, private disability insurance, and veterans disability claims in all 50 states. Marc Whitehead is double board certified in both Social Security disability law and personal injury trial law. Marc has litigated disability cases in over 40 states and counting and can help your clients too. Stop throwing your phone calls away. Call Marc Whitehead at 701-VIP-LEAD. That's 701-VIP-LEAD. Or visit our website at disabilitydenials.com. Referral fees are paid in all jurisdictions where it is permitted. Refer us your disability cases today and know that your clients will be in good hands.
All right, Mark, I get the first 3 reports and you get the second 2 reports. Is that fair?
Okay, I'm not even sure if that numerical thing works.
Well, don't have no fear. How
about you get 1 through 3 and I get 4 and 5?
Yes, sir.
That would be clearer. That's a better use of the English language.
Thank you. I appreciate that, yes. Mark. You haven't fed me yet, sir. Just to be clear, food is the love language. But also, I have put in a couple of points in here for you to get on your soapbox because after 5 years together, I think that I know exactly what your trigger points are, and some of these are all your trigger points. And so my first report that I have really started honing in on in the last 6 months is closed without a fee reports. And I know you guys are probably thinking, oh, Diane, I have those. And I'm like, but do you really?
Do you really?
Because the closed without a fee reports are those that you not only just decided to drop because the client didn't want to pursue their claim anymore. They're those cases that you either decided just to, you got a 0, like you just decided to wash the.
Yeah, so let's go through what closed without a fee means.
Thank you, Mark.
Oh, yeah. I pitch you a softball.
Oh, well, I thought that one was you. That was your opportunity
okay.
to pontificate.
Oh, right, fine. All right, so close without a fee. Close without a fee means a couple of things. Number one, we drop the case. Number two, the client decides to drop the case. Number three, the client decides to drop us and can pursue the case elsewhere, which doesn't happen often, but can happen. Or four, we take it to its natural resolution, to its conclusion, and basically lose.
And or I say number 5 is just you also got 0 fees on it.
Oh, well, okay. So there's a scenario in our world where we can win but do not collect a fee.
And
in other words, there's no fees to be awarded, which is usually can be a victory for the client, but it's not a victory for us. We like to get paid.
Which is why I think I've started focusing on those as well.
Right.
Because you put in a lot of effort, money, a lot of time into it. Could we have learned a lesson there earlier?
And so for each of these types of cases, it's good to analyze them and see what happened.
So one of the things that it tells you, obviously, is we do our closed without a fee reports now and tie them to the source, because you're always trying to get back to marketing, right? We've reached a natural conclusion of the case. We got to tell marketing, did we win or did we not win, and why and how and which source brought us this case. Because if you aggregate over time, you might be able to draw a parallel to which source is sending you not so good cases, maybe.
Right. So that's one way. The other way is to look at, let's say, why did we take the case to begin with? What is the intake criteria that triggered us to take this case? And if the case then goes south on us for whatever reason, maybe we need to be looking at our intake criteria a little closer. So one of the things, this was a simple one, but one of the things that we've done is we've started paying more attention over the last 5 years of the age range of the clients we're taking, because we know in our world, we are more likely to win a case when the client is older, i.e. in our world, like 49 and 50 plus, than if they're younger. Say if they're, I'll go to the extreme here. Say if they're in their mid-20s, okay? So much more difficult case to win just based on their age. So that is one, that's the most, every disability lawyer knows that. So for those of you out there that don't know disability, don't worry about it. It's just a thing with us. But also, you can also track it by the intake specialist. So certain intake specialists, they are given a lot of latitude in accepting cases. And are there certain intake specialists that, have taken, too many cases or are, opening up their criteria wider than what we really intended because they're trying to meet their intake number. So that's always a problem. We put in some guardrails because of that. So I remember this was before you, but I had an intake specialist that we were signing up a record number of cases for VA disability. And I was like, wow, what did we do? What's so great about marketing? Turned out she was just taking everything.
Well, that's a good way to making sure you.
I know. Really, and we had all of these cases that were like, why did we take this case? So, that's another good way to use this data to track. So,
yep. And on the converse side, on the ops side, we also track it by case manager. So obviously you also want to know, are we getting more closed without a fee cases for any of those 5 reasons with a specific case manager? And I think obviously the most obvious reason why this report is so important is because it really tells you what cash flow will look like in whatever your cash cycle is, 30, 45 days. If you closed a lot of cases without a fee in one particular month, you might need to focus on cash a little bit more carefully in the next, whatever
your cash flow is going to dip
without that. But Mark, the real reason why I wanted to talk about closed without a fee is because of some of the rooms that you have that I've participated in, because, you've put me there, the masterminds and such, where average fee is discussed, and people discuss average fee without the closed without a fee cases, which is...
Right. So this is my soapbox moment. When you figure out your average fee, you have to count the zeros.
And not everybody does.
No, a lot of people don't. So I had a discussion. I had a discussion with a certain marketing director for a certain firm, and they were doing some calculus. They were doing some math on a marketing effort, and we signed up X number of cases. Therefore, we brought in this much business, and blah 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 blah. And he was so happy that his ROI was going to be huge. These are all projections. I'm like, how did you come up with the average fee? And he showed me. Well, he didn't count the zeros. He only counted the cases that they won, that they actually collected on. I'm like, okay, well, now you've totally missed the boat because you're only going to collect. And in the SSD world, we typically only collect on about 65 to 70% of our cases. We close without a fee probably about 30% of our cases, maybe even a little bit more than that. I have to check that number again, but for a lot of reasons, a lot of people, we drop. A lot of people choose to go back to work and drop their claim. You don't win every case in SSD land. And so he had overstated his projections by over a third because he wasn't counting the zeros.
And that, I think, is so important because you get all of these, and especially in the PI world, you get the TCPC, the true cost per case formulas that everybody loves to throw around when I go to these conferences. And everyone says that, your average closed fee should be 5 times of your TCPC. And if that's not your ratio or whatever ratio you use.
Sounds dirty.
Mark, our marketing director is aghast that you are making us get
I'm just saying, did you get that term
again.
off of YouPorn or something? I don't know.
Mark, you are definitely getting us an explicit. No, it's literally true cost per case.
True cost per case.
And so if you're not calculating your losses,
Okay.
your true cost per case isn't going to be accurate. And so this is why I think that if you're not calculating or watching your close without a fee cases for any of those 5 scenarios Mark mentioned, and if you're not calculating your average fee with losses, do it both ways if it makes you feel better.
So, and we do it both ways, because there's reasons for both. The different stats tell you different things.
And so then I think your marketing, every report, I think, in my opinion, will be skewed. So moving on to my second one,
Second report
that Mark and I unsurprisingly disagree on.
Yes, I have problems with this report, but let's go.
So everyone's familiar with the Pareto principle,
Are
which is, are they not? Okay. Well, the Pareto principle basically says that 80% of something will come from 20% of something, right? 80% of your business is going to come from 20% of your sales associates. I don't know what else there would be, but in our world,
I think the biggest one is that 80% of your revenue will come from the top 20% of your clients.
Or the way that I was running it for us, which is 80% of your lit revenue should come from 20% of your clients. And so when I was running our Pareto analysis for 2025, Mark didn't like what I came up with. And so he decided that, well, the Pareto works for the rest of the world, but it doesn't work for Marc Whitehead.
Okay, so here's my point. So the Pareto principle works when your data is more variable, when you have a bell curve, okay? When you mean that when you have some highs and you have some lows, and then you have the first derivative or it's been literally 35, 40 years since I took statistics, but so I can't, I'm blanking. But I do remember bell curves.
Okay.
All right. So if you have a fairly good bell curve, the Pareto principle probably works pretty well. The problem is when you don't have a lot of variability in your data points. So for example, in our Social Security disability practice, we're fee capped. So we don't have highs and lows like you would in a PI practice. Everything is fairly uniform. Our fees don't vary a lot. They vary some, but not a huge number.
Except I was running your lit files, which are not fee capped.
I'm just making a point. I'm just making a statistical analysis point. So the point would be is that Pareto doesn't work very well when you don't have a lot of variability in your numbers. In other words, when you don't have a good bell curve. If your bell curve is extremely flat, it doesn't work as well. In the PI world, it works really well because you have a lot of $5,000 attorney fee cases and you can have your $1 million attorney fee cases. There's a lot of variability in there. So Pareto works pretty well. We all know that you can have a great year if you just hit one big case in the PI world. Doesn't work the same way in the disability world. We just have to keep grinding because our fee variability is not as great. Hence, I don't think Pareto works as well. I don't say it didn't work, but it just doesn't work as well.
I personally...
It is not as insightful for us as it would be for a PI practice.
I'm going to go ahead and say that as your resident data geek...
You're calling bullshit.
Yeah, 100%. You just didn't like you didn't like my summary because your lit settlements varied significantly last year. And I get that, Mark. It takes a while for you to understand, to accept accept what I'm giving you. No, I'm telling you, you're resistant to change, sir. Mm-hmm. So if you don't agree, like Mark doesn't, that 80-20 applies to you, then first of all, find out what your ratio is. Go back in time, historically, I'd say 3 years, and figure out what your proper ratio is. But you must do, if you are any kind of... I'd say if you're not in estate planning where your fees are mostly the same, that probably doesn't apply to you. But any other, especially contingency firms.
Another example where Pareto is bullshit.
Then I would go back and look at your lit files. Not your lit files, your settlements, and see where your Pareto principle is. If it's not 80-20, then figure out what it is. Because it tells you how hard your attorneys are working. Are they getting top dollar for your lit files? And that really only applies to contingency fee practice areas. It also tells you if your average fee is correct, because it goes back to my first favorite report, which was your average fee. So it goes back to your value of cases. So are your marketing dollars being used in the correct practice areas? Because if your Pareto principle isn't right, and if your average fee isn't right, then you're making some really bad decisions in where you're spending your marketing.
Right. So the reason that it's important to know your average fee is for a couple of reasons. Number one, simple ROI calculations on your marketing efforts. I would say if my average fee is $5,000 and my average cost to obtain a case is $1,000, that means you have a 5-to-1 return on your marketing investment, which may or may not be good in your particular industry. But at least now you know the number. I got to spend $1,000 to get a $5,000 case. The problem is now in the contingency fee world, you're going to have to wait 2 years to collect it. So that's one reason you want to know your average fee. The other reason is you want to be able to project revenue, because again, since we have to wait months or years to collect a fee, projecting revenue can be difficult, but we have figured out a way to use the average fee and our velocity of cases to come up with a formula that is pretty accurate on projecting revenue for us so we can budget effectively.
Unless your Pareto is wrong. At least that's what I'm talking about in report 2. Or basically is saying that here's what it told me, even if you disagree with where our Pareto should be, it tells you where your attorney spent a lot of time and potentially money, even if they didn't spend a lot of case expense. Their time is a lot of money on your Dudley or any of these firms. We'll call them F cases. We call them C cases, but your C and your F cases, those where
this is your ranking,
they're
your
below
cases,
your
A, B, C, D, and so forth.
They're below your average fee. They're below your Pareto, whichever you want, whichever method you want to use in your firm. If you don't do your Pareto, you're not going to figure out where the bulk of your settlements were, which tells you where the bulk of your attorneys spent their time. And especially if your Pareto is below your attorney's, your average fee, you've got to adjust in the next year, or else I think you're probably going to be a little off on your projected revenue the coming year. But for them, I'm going to get off my soapbox now because Mark's getting angry with me. Just in case, because, and I'm going to try to say this one slowly because I know I talk fast, guys, but if you've never done a Pareto, obviously you can Google it. But the way that I did it, very simply, you export last year's fees into Excel. You sort from high to low. You note the total amount of that total fee amount and what 80% of that is. That's your 80 of the 20. And then you basically go down all the way down your list until your sum of your fees equals the 80% number. And that should be 20%.
In theory,
That's your Pareto point.
your top 20% of your cases should have generated 80% of your money if you have a
Or whatever ratio.
if you have a reasonable distribution.
Whatever Marc decides our Pareto is going to be. So moving to my third favorite report, and I cheated on this one. I decided to pull a Marc and just call it exceptions reporting, EXCEPTIONS, because it's my new favorite thing after
How is
sending
this called
people.
pulling a Marc? I don't understand.
Because Marc just has to go off script. So, guys, I'm not giving you the name of a report. I'm telling you that you should create exceptions reports for your practice
All right,
area.
tell us what that means.
So, I'm a big Mickey fan, and at PILMA,
Mickey Love.
And at PILMA last year, she said one thing that made the entire conference. I don't even know what you spent on it for me to go.
Too
worth
much.
it. No, but this made it worth it. I'm telling you, this one word, 2 words, made it so worth it.
To take a team of 5 people to Denver, I'm sure I spent at least $15,000.
Well, your bar tab should have been lower. That's all I have to say
Yeah.
about that. So, but she said exceptions report, and it was like a light bulb for me. So, as Marc said, we have dashboards and we track things. We are not the only firm that tracks things ad nauseum. So now we give them to our managers and expect them to do things with them. But what we really want our managers to do is focus on things that are outside our norm. So, for example, if we're saying that all of our pre-lit demands need to be only in the pre-lit demand stage in Litify for 90 days, I made that number up. But on the 91st day, our senior paralegal's job is to focus on anything that's in the pre-lit demand stage above 90 days. Either push the attorney what's going on or push the attorney to litigation, basically, right? We're trying to take action on anything above 90 days. 91 and above is our focus. I'm sure there's another
Get
report.
off your ass. Get your cases moving.
There's another report that tells her how many we have in the pre-lit demand stage. There's another report that tells her how many by attorney we have in the pre-lit demand stage. I'm sure there's another one that will tell her by insurance company by pre-lit demand stage. The only thing I care about for Melanie to run about is the ones that are 91 and above. And so now every Monday in this beautiful dashboard that you don't read, she gets a report that are the pre-lit demands 91 and above. And her job, her essential KPI is
To kick her attorney's asses and say, get off your ass and go do something.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so exceptions reporting has become my newest craze in the firm. And so I think that some of the biggest things that you can implement in your own firm, I call it DSO, and Marc gets all the attorneys glaze over when I say DSO, and I really don't know what else to call it in attorney world.
What does DSL stand for?
Day sales outstanding. I don't know. It's whenever you have an invoice in any other industry, and it's how many days it's taking you to collect on that invoice. You know this better than I do. Your attorney settle a case and they think, check mark, done, and they move on. Money isn't in the door yet, and you need them focused. We give them, what is it, a KPI? Call it 21 days, whatever, 30 days, 7 days for some firms to get the money in the door. And we worry about the ones when you're at day 8. What are you doing to collect this money? And
Right.
what
I think
helps
it's
you?
21 days we give them.
It is 21.
So on the
forever.
22nd day, we start raising a little hell.
Well,
Where
yeah.
is the money?
What's going on?
Yeah.
Because, it is, but that's one that I
Do
like.
you really want your bonus check? Just
Well,
asking.
and I have heard in some rooms that we've sat in that some law firms actually start to decrease the bonus percentage to the attorney based on, again, the DSO, how many days it takes to collect that money, which we don't do that because, you're so nice.
Yeah.
The other thing that I want to start tracking in this firm is time on desk for C cases. I
C
think
cases means not your A cases or your B
by
cases.
value. Yep, exactly.
So your lower value cases.
I think those tend to, this is my theory. I'm going to pull a Marc here and just say my theory is that our C cases hang on longer than they should because they don't want to deal with it because it's the lowest value. And it's only, in my estimation, going to decrease in value the longer you let it sit.
I totally agree with everything you just said.
So that's one of my newest exceptions reports.
Again, sticking your foot up a certain person's behind to make them get off their ass and deal with their cases.
Well, and my final one that I would say, guys, if you still don't know, like Mark, that what I mean when I say exceptions reporting, look for your handoffs and your bottlenecks. If you're like that right there is where good cases go to die, that's where you need to create an exceptions report. So go back to your practices, look where you're finding your bottlenecks, and then create an exceptions report, establish what your criteria should be, create the exceptions report, and I hope your bottleneck will start to flow. So Mark, you've got the 4th and 5th reports.
I have the 4th and 5th reports. All right. So who was it that said this? It was one of the Glens. It was either Glenn Finch or Glenn Gutek, and I can't remember now. It was Glenn and Glenn squared, whatever. Said that struck me one time. If you don't have a CFO in your firm, you are the CFO. And I'm like, oh shit, I'm the CFO of my firm. Well, what do you need to know as the CFO? You need to understand your cash. Where is your cash? Where is your cash going? What is your collectibles? You know, not what you got this month, but what are you going to get next month? What are you going to get the month after that and the month after that? And looking out into the future, because you're having to manage your cash. It doesn't matter how profitable you are. If you run out of cash, you are screwed. So there's plenty of profitable companies that went bankrupt because they ran out of cash. So to me, monitoring cash is really important. So I have a cash flow report. I call it a dashboard, but it's a report. And it tells me at all times, in real time, how much outstanding in receivables I have for each practice area. How much I have in VA, how much I have in SSD, how much I have over in insurance, in mass torts. I know how much money I have outstanding. I also know that different practice areas, the cash flow collection cycle runs, different lengths. So when we win an SSD case, it can take 3 to 4 months to get paid. When we win a VA case, there's a long process to get paid. It can generally take 6, even 8 months to get paid. Insurance is a little faster. Like you said, if it's a lit case, we typically are pushing to get paid within 21 days. So each of these practice areas have different cash cycle times. So I have a report that always tells me how much I have in collectibles. It has an estimate on how much, how old these are. Like an SSD case that's 1 month old has a longer conversion time than an SSD case, a collectible that's already been on the books for 4 months. So in other words, it predicts how much cash I have coming in over the next 2, 3, 4 months. Now, it's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I look at it at least once a week because I need to know where we are from a cash perspective. And I need to know by practice area because, again, we get paid differently. SSD, the money just pops into the account. We have automatic direct deposit with the government. Whereas on the insurance side, now we're having to wait, for insurance companies. It's just all of this is important, but you need to know when the cash is coming in because, maybe if we're predicting that we're going to have a down quarter in terms of cash, then maybe we need to pull back on a few things. Jennifer's sitting here; she has to close her ears, but maybe we have to pull back on our marketing spend a little bit, or other variable costs that we can control. Certain things you can't control. You can't really control your labor too easily, but your marketing you can press the gas or you can hit the brake. So this is kind of I think the most important thing that I look at as the de facto CFO of the damn firm, since we don't have one. So that would be number 4 on my list. Okay.
I'm so glad. That was one of my first dashboards I made for you.
It is a good dashboard. And I do, like I said, that's one of the ones, I have 3 dashboards that I look at constantly, and that's one of the 3. So the 4th one, and I'm sort of combining this because each department has one of these. So I have a monthly departmental dashboard for each of our 4 major revenue producing departments. And They each give me a report, but they vary slightly, but they basically give me this general information, which I'm trying to like. So every month, each department, I need to know how many cases you have in total and at what stage they are. So I will get a report from, say, Social Security Disability. We have 800 cases at initial application stage. We have 700 cases at reconsideration stage. We have 300 cases at hearing stage. We have X number of cases at appeals council, have an X number of cases that are in federal court. So it gives me a breakdown of the total caseload by what stage they're in. That matters to me because that helps me allocate resources, because the biggest thing I have to allocate is labor. So different departments handle cases at different stages. We have what we call Pod 1, I think, which sort of equates to a PI firm would call that a pre-litigation phase. Mm-hmm. And then we have Pod 2, which is at the hearing stage and at the federal level, which I think, you could kind of equate that to a PI firm, their litigation department. So I need to know, because I need to know, do I have enough people, in each department? These reports also give me the caseload per case manager. So we look at the number, how many cases can a case manager handle effectively? And it differs. At pre-lit, they can handle more cases. In Pod 1, they can handle more. When you get over to the hearing stage or the lit stage, those case managers have a smaller number of cases that we want them to handle. So as I see this and I see the numbers creeping up over time, I'm like, okay, we may need to hire another Pod 1 case manager because our caseloads on average across the board are getting too high. So basically this report helps me allocate resources. How much labor do you need? Also we track by stage, revenue by stage. So we can win cases at the initial app stage. So how much revenue are we collecting at initial app? How much are we collecting at recon? How much are we collecting at hearing? And it tells me basically how effective each of these departments are at each particular stage. Hearings per month. This is a big one. So for PI firm, that would be your trial settings. But for us, we have hearings. In February, we had 54 hearings. That's a pretty solid number. That's a good number. Anytime we have over 50. March, we only have 45 hearings set. It's a little light, especially for a 31-day month. So I'm like, what happened there? Why do we have fewer hearings set?
Your attorneys do not think that's light.
That's okay. April, we got 59 hearings already set, and probably are going to have a few more. So we're probably going to have a 60 hearing month in April. I love that because hearings are what makes the cash register go cha-ching. So I'm always looking at that, but it is an issue. So the more hearings I have, I'm going to have to allocate more attorney resources in that direction because only attorneys can handle the hearings. So at some point, if we get to where we're averaging 70, 80 hearings a month, I'm probably going to need to hire another attorney. So again, it helps me determine resource of allocation or allocation of resources. So this is, and each department has one of these reports. So it's not one global for everything. But it is what I look at every month to basically gauge what is the capacity of my firm right now in terms of handling cases and what do I need to do? When do I need to increase capacity?
Pipeline analysis.
Pipeline analysis. Thank you.
That's what I would call that.
Okay, perfect. Why didn't you say that to begin with?
Because I made it as our takeaways.
Oh, got it. Fine. Thank you.
And so when we go, so Mark, I think any closing thoughts on our 5 reports that we can't live without at the firm?
We have had a lot more reports in the past, and what I have found is that when we just consolidate it down, these are the ones that really matter, and the rest become noise, except for the marketing intake, which is another podcast.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. But these are the 5 operational reports that I think really matter.
Awesome. So when we come back, 5 takeaways.
5 takeaways from today's podcast.
This is Marc Whitehead, lawyer, entrepreneur, and business coach. Thanks for listening to the Successful Barrister podcast. If we've stirred your juices, hit me up with an email at mark@markwhitehead.com. Remember, Mark is spelled with a C. And get on the Successful Barrister newsletter mailing list. Even better, let's set up a call. I'd love to talk to you about working together, talk shop, or just shooting the breeze.
All right, Diana. So our 5 key takeaways with regard to reports that we cannot live without.
All right, so I'm going to take the first 3 because they kind of related to my talking points, and which the first one, guys, is get rid of any reports that you don't use or understand. I think that there are a few, definitely when I started that, I was like, what does this mean? And because people build dashboards, or your implementation partner will build you dashboards and reports, and they just live on forever, and nobody knows what they mean
Legacy
anymore.
reports that nobody knows why we have them.
Or even what the data is telling you. So if you're not taking action on a report that you receive or look at, a tile, if you will, daily or whatever cadence you use for your reporting, get rid of it. My second takeaway, and I harped on this one a little less, but if you have questions about anything in your practice, develop a report for that. So basically, this was my whole exceptions reporting, like just my soapbox, I think. But where you aren't sure why things are breaking down, if there's a handoffs happen a lot in our firm. Mark likes to say they're the volley, Social Security volley things back over to us, or the insurance company will say, okay, here's your denial. But then if they, for example, a final denial, and then what happens next? The case may linger if
we
you
will
don't
crush
have,
them in federal court. That's what happens. We get a final denial, we will crush you.
I switched practice areas and I went to lit for you, but sorry about that, Mark. But I went in a final denial in your insurance department. If there's not a trigger for something else to happen, for someone to do a call with a client, or for us to move on to the next, hand it off to the next team. And that's why I'm saying if you look for your handoffs and then develop reports around those, because that's where you're going to find your best exception reports and also actionable information. And my final takeaway, only because Mark and I, actually we agree on this part.
We do agree.
The Pareto, we don't, but so I left that one out so we don't rub that scar too much. But don't forget to calculate your average fee with and without your losses, just to make sure you're using your marketing dollars wisely, but also because you can have find opportunities from intake to operations for efficiency, whether that's, like Mark said, looking at a particular intake specialist, or even on the ops side, if you got a particular case manager that maybe, we might need to do some additional training with.
Yes. So number 4 on the list, as I've stated earlier, cash is king. And you must know your cash position and your cash flow forecast at all times. And this is something that, if you think about it, is a very predictable thing. You can track it, you can predict it, you can make projections. It just takes a little bit of work. But if you add in your lovely technology that all of the CRMs are providing for you, you can automate a lot of this stuff. But you always need to know your cash position currently and your projected cash position over the next quarter at a minimum, because you don't want to run out of cash. That's bad. And number 5, as Diana so eloquently put it, as I couldn't describe it well, your pipeline analysis. You need to know where your cases are in the pipeline. And how close your cases are to cash. So some cases, we can hit the cash register at various points along the pipeline. You can hit the cash register in pre-lit for those cases in pre-lit that don't make it to settlement, that have to go to lit. Well, all right, there's other stages within that where you can hit the cash register. At a mediation, you can hit the cash register, or you may have to take it all the way to trial before you hit the cash register. But basically, understand where cases are in the pipeline and where opportunities are to make the cash register ring within that pipeline, and keep your cases moving. Don't let your cases stall.
Sounds great, Mark. We didn't even fight too much today.
No.
And you only called me a geek one time after I started counting.
Geek. So
2.
I had a quick note. So we've been making some offers for some free goodies. So we had the AI checklist that we've made an offer, the marketing plan that we've made an offer.
Your core values yesterday.
The core values yesterday,
last podcast.
Yeah. All of these things, if you're interested, I'd be happy to email them to you. So let me, with this one caveat, we have this brand new spam filter that's on our system, and I've been digging through it. And several of you that have made this request have ended up in my spam folder. So I'm digging you out. I apologize. So I may be late getting some of you what you've asked for because I had to dig you out of the spam folder. If you don't get a reply quickly, just send me another email. Maybe the spam folder will get tired and stopping my important email. But anyway,
You're on the side of caution.
I just really hate this new spam filter. It really is a pain in the ass.
Yes, but I like it.
It doesn't save me any time.
So
It doesn't.
On that, thanks for listening to the Successful Barrister podcast, where legal legends are made.
Are you taking over my closing?
Well, I don't really feel like this is something that our listeners need to hear us process right now.
Yes, it is. All right. I'm taking the closing back over. I'll let you do it 1 week.
And
so that's
I
it.
just let it go to my head.
That's it. And you let it go to your head. All right. All right. So thanks for listening to the Successful Barrister podcast, where legal legends are made. I'm Mark.
And I'm Diana.
And together we're the dynamic duo of law. So if you've enjoyed today's episode, please rate and review us and share it with your fellow overworked lawyers. For more episodes and resources, visit us at successfulbarrister.com or hit me up with an email for any of the freebies that I've been offering. So at markwhitehead.com. Remember, Mark is spelled with a C. And don't forget to visit our sponsor, Marc Whitehead Associates, a national disability law firm, at www.disabilitydenials.com. I'll say that again, www.disabilitydenials.com. Yeah, last week you left out the www when I let you do it. www.
Do I need it?
Yeah, we're Texas, www.
All right, sir.
Okay, fine.
That's the reason why.
All right, till next time, run a practice, not a prison. See ya.
Bye.